A lantern casts a small circle of warmth on the flagstone floor. In this softer light, the carvings on the walls seem to breathe, older and more still than the world outside. Tonight we drift through the stillness of the Sorcerer, king alone in his throne room. Let the road fall behind you. Sink into your pillow as the hearth settles to embers. Let your breath turn slow and quiet in the candle glow. Let every worry drift beyond the inn door. This is the drowsy dragon. Let us begin. The great iron-bound doors have finally swung shut for the final time this evening. In the heart of the Obsidian spire, the silence is not merely an absence of noise, but a living presence that fills every corner of the hall. Here the Sorcerer King stands alone, his crown a weighted circle of silver and starlight pressing against his brow. The floor, polished to a mirror sheen, reflects the constellations that drift across the vaulted ceiling above. Each step he takes echoes through the immense chamber, a lonely measure in the stillness. Floating tapers, burning with a pale violet flame, drift through the atmosphere, casting long dancing shadows against the stone. The scent of lavender and old weathered leather hangs in the stillness of the room. Outside the high arched windows, the realm of Oakhaven lies asleep, tucked under a blanket of silver mist. No soldiers march, no peasants toil. Only the wind whispers against the masonry of the tower. He moves toward the throne, a seat carved from a single fallen star that hums with a low, nearly imperceptible frequency. The stone is cold to the touch, yet it vibrates with the history of 1,000 years. He rests his hand upon the armrest, feeling the intricate etched runes beneath his fingertips. These symbols were carved by artisans whose names have been lost to the passage of time. They tell the story of the first dawn and the binding of the elemental tides. As his fingers trace the grooves, a soft golden radiance pulses from the stone, answering his presence. The Sorcerer King exhales a long, slow breath, watching the mist of his own life dissipate. There is a peace in this isolation, a reprieve from the demands of the crown and the council. In the dimness, he is not a ruler or a mage, but a witness to the quiet passage of the evening. He turns his gaze toward the sprawling windows where the moon hangs like a pale silver coin. The forest below is a sea of charcoal and indigo where the great elder trees sway in their sleep. Somewhere in the distance, a night bird calls, a single clear note that pierces the velvet of the murk. Inside the chamber, the mage light flickers in response to the shifting of the wind. The tapestries that line the walls depict the heroes of another era, their faces woven in threads of silk and gold. They watch him with silent, embroidered eyes, as if acknowledging the burden he carries. He walks to a small marble table where a carafe of crystal water stands waiting. The glass is cool, and the liquid is as clear as a mountain spring, reflecting the violet of the candles. He pours a measure, the sound of the stream a sharp, bright clatter in the hollow room. As he drinks, he feels the chill of the water travel through him, grounding his spirit to the physical world. The magic that usually surges through his veins like a river of fire turns to a gentle, cooling stream. It is a moment of absolute clarity where the complexities of the realm fade into the background. He returns his attention to the great star map that occupies the center of the hall. It is a mechanism of brass and glass where tiny glowing spheres represent the celestial bodies. They move in a slow, measured tempo, tracing the paths of the gods across the firmament. Each sphere is a marvel of clockwork and enchantment, spinning on an axis of fine silver wire. He reaches out to adjust a single sapphire moon, nudging it back into its proper celestial alignment. The gears click with a soft, satisfying metallic note as the alignment is restored. This room is his sanctuary, a place where the chaos of the outside is filtered through stone and spell. The walls are thick, built to withstand the siege of armies and the erosion of centuries. Within this fortress, the atmosphere is thick, saturated with the essence of protective wards. He notices a single stray moth fluttering near one of the floating candles. Its wings are the color of ash, and its flight is a frantic, erratic pattern against the steady light. He watches it for a long, quiet moment, admiring the simple, fragile life that exists even here. With a gentle wave of his hand, he guides the creature toward an open, narrow slit in the masonry. It disappears into the cool evening air, finding its way back to the garden below. The king smiles, a small, weary expression that softens the hard lines of his face. He moves back to the throne and finally eases into the seat of starstone. It conforms to his form, the weighted pressure of his robes settling around his boots. The fabric is velvet, a deep midnight blue embroidered with the sigils of his house. He closes his eyes, listening to the pulse of the mountain beneath the tower's foundation. It is a deep, resonant thrum, the heartbeat of the earth itself. It reminds him that despite his power, he is a part of a much larger, older cycle. The shadows in the corners seem to lengthen as the candles burn lower in their levitation. The violet light turns to a soft charcoal grey as the magic begins to rest. The Sorcerer King lets his head fall back against the cold, storied stone. In this state between wakefulness and sleep, the boundaries of the room seem to expand. He can feel the dreams of his people rising like wood smoke from the chimneys of the city. They are dreams of harvest and hearth, of simple joys and quiet fears. He holds these dreams gently in his mind like a gardener, tending to a delicate evening bloom. It is his duty to watch over them, to ensure that the peace of the night remains unbroken. The responsibility is a heavy laden coat, but one he wears with a quiet, humble pride. A soft rhythmic ticking comes from the far wall where a grandfather clock of elven craft stands. Its pendulum is a sliver of moonstone swinging back and forth in a perfect hypnotic measure. It marks the passing of the hours with a gentle wooden heartbeat. He watches the shadows play across the floor, creating shapes of dragons and griffins in the dimness. The obsidian catches the light and bends it into shimmering liquid pools of purple and blue. It is a dance of light and blackness that has performed here for centuries. The king shifts, his hand falling to the hilt of the ceremonial blade at his side. The metal is cool, and the pommel is a sunstone that glows with a faint internal warmth. He does not need it tonight, for the peace of the spire is absolute. He thinks of the libraries located deep beneath his feet, where the knowledge of the ages is preserved. Millions of words written on parchment and vellum, waiting for the eyes of the curious. He is the guardian of that history, the keeper of the flame that wards off the void. The air in the throne room grows cooler as the early morning approaches. A thin silver line of dawn is still hours away, yet the atmosphere anticipates its arrival. He pulls his cloak tighter around his shoulders, enjoying the contrast between the chill and his own warmth. He looks up at the great stained glass window behind the throne. It depicts the creation of the world in shards of ruby, emerald, and gold. In the moonlight, the colors are muted, yet they retain a ghostly, ethereal beauty. The figures in the glass seem to move as the clouds outside drift across the moon's face. A goddess pouring water from a silver ewer appears to blink in the shifting half-light. It is a trick of the eyes, born of fatigue and the magic of the place. He feels a sense of profound, quiet gratitude for this moment of solitude. In the day, he is the center of a storm of petitions and decrees and strategy. But now, in the late hour, he is simply a man sitting in a chair of stone. The murmur of the wind outside grows into a soft, melodic hum as it passes through the spire's flutes. It is a song of the high places, a melody that only the birds and the kings ever hear. He lets the music wash over him, clearing away the lingering debris of the day. His breathing slows, matching the cadence of the pendulum across the room. The violet candles are now mere sparks of light, hovering like fireflies in the gloom. The room is turning to a deep, restful indigo as the Sorcerer King finally prepares to leave the throne. He stands, his movements fluid and careful, as if not to wake the sleeping tower. The obsidian floor is cold beneath his feet, a final grounding touch before he departs. He looks back at the empty throne, a silent monument in the center of the hall. He walks toward the private inner chambers, his shadow trailing behind him like a loyal dark hound. The doors to the balcony stand slightly ajar, letting in the scent of damp earth and pine. He pauses there, taking one last look at the sleeping kingdom before the dawn. The stars are beginning to fade, their light being swallowed by the coming of the day. But for now the quiet remains a thick, protective veil over the world. He steps through the inner archway, the heavy stone door clicking shut with a final gentle note. The corridor beyond the great hall is narrow and lined with smooth white marble that feels like a sanctuary away from the weight of the crown. Here the mage light is softer, a pale, honeyed glow that emanates from the walls themselves in a steady, pulsing warmth. There are no torches here, no flickering flames to cast, dancing shadows across the floor. Only the quiet, internal energy of the mountain provides the illumination for his private passage. He walks with a measured step, his boots making a soft, muffled thud on the woven silk runners that line the path. The fabric is thick and dyed a deep sapphire blue, like the ocean at twilight, absorbing the noise of his movement. He passes a series of alcoves, each holding a relic of his lineage that tells a story of times long gone. A shattered shield, a rusted circlet, and a dried flower, preserved in a sphere of clear glass, all rest in the dimness. Each object holds a memory, a fragment of a life lived in service to the realm and its people. He does not stop to look at them, for their stories are written upon his heart and in the stones of this tower. The atmosphere in the hallway is still and carries the faint scent of sandalwood and old parchment. It is the smell of wisdom and the quiet labor of the mind that takes place behind these walls. The door to his study swings open without a groan, as if it has been waiting for his return all evening. Inside, the fragrance of dried lavender and beeswax is dense and comforting, wrapping around him like a familiar cloak. It is a room of circles and soft curves, with shelves that reach up toward a domed ceiling made of glass. Thousands of volumes are housed here, their leather spines embossed with silver and gold lettering that glimmers in the magelight. He does not reach for them tonight, for his mind is already full of the narratives of the day and the needs of his kingdom. He moves toward a large oak desk that sits in the center of the library, its surface cluttered with maps and compasses. A single crystal inkwell sits near the edge, the ink inside a deep midnight purple that reflects the stars above. He runs a finger along the edge of a parchment map, feeling the texture of the hills and the valleys he protects. This landscape is his charge, a tapestry of life and magic that he must weave together with care and patience. The map shows the rivers like silver threads, winding through the dark green forests and the grey stony mountains. He can see the tiny marks of villages and towns where people are now sleeping under the protection of his wards. A sense of peace washes over him as he realizes that for this moment all is well in his corner of the universe. He turns away from the desk and walks toward a narrow window that looks out over the western peaks. The snow on the summits is brilliant under the moonlight, shining like a crown of diamonds against the black sky. The wind whistles softly through the narrow opening, bringing with it the chill of the high altitudes. It is a clean, sharp scent that clears the last of the fatigue from his thoughts, leaving him alert and calm. In the corner of the study, a silver wash basin sits upon a pedestal of carved obsidian, etched with protective runes. The runes glow with a soft azure light, keeping the water inside at a perfect lukewarm temperature. He dips his hands into the basin, the liquid feeling like liquid silk against his tired skin. The ripples he creates distort the reflection of the ceiling, turning the stars into swirling ribbons of light. He washes his face, the water washing away the dust of the throne room and the lingering tension of the day. He dries his hands on a linen towel that is soft and smells of mountain air and sunshine. His movements are slow and deliberate, a ritual of transition from the public king to the private man. He feels the weighted pull of sleep, tugging at his eyelids, but he is not quite ready to surrender to the dreams. He leaves the study and enters his bedchamber, a room that is smaller and more intimate than the rest of the suite. A low burning hearth sits in the wall, the embers glowing a deep fiery orange in the twilight of the room. The bed is large and draped in velvet hangings of a rich forest green that provide a sense of safety. A plush rug made of thick mountain sheep wool covers the floor, feeling warm and soft beneath his feet. He sits in a tall leather armchair beside the fire, watching the way the light plays across the stone walls. A large tapestry hangs opposite him, depicting the history of the stars in intricate silver and blue threads. He follows the lines of the constellations, with his eyes tracing the path of the Great Bear and the Hunter across the fabric. The needlework is so fine that the stars seem to twinkle as the firelight shifts and changes. An incense burner made of hammered bronze sits on a small side table, releasing a thin ribbon of smoke. The scent is a blend of cedar and frankincense, a grounding aroma that helps to still the mind and the spirit. He watches the smoke as it rises in a slow, graceful spiral toward the ceiling, before disappearing into the shadows. The murmur of the fire is the only noise in the room, a gentle crackling cadence that is deeply soothing. He looks at a silver mirror on the wall, but he does not see his own reflection in the dim half-light. Instead, he sees the room behind him, the books, the fire, and the quiet peace of his private world. It is a reflection of his soul, a place of order and beauty that he has created over many long years. He feels a sense of deep satisfaction in the knowledge that he has built a sanctuary for himself and his people. On the table beside him sits a small potted plant, its leaves a vibrant bioluminescent violet that glows in the dark. It is a rare species from the deep caverns of the south that thrives on the magic of the tower. He reaches out to touch a leaf, the texture feeling like cool velvet against his fingertips. The plant pulses with a soft rhythmic light that matches the beat of his own heart. He stands and walks to the window, pulling back the heavy velvet curtains to reveal the landscape below. The valley is filled with a thick white mist that looks like a frozen river winding through the trees. The lights of the village are hidden beneath the fog, but he knows they are there, glowing like embers in the night. He feels a connection to every living thing in the valley, a bond of magic and responsibility that he cherishes. He turns back to the room, the warmth of the fire drawing him toward the bed and the rest he has earned. He removes his outer robe, the silk sliding off his shoulders with a soft, sibilant hiss. He lays it across the back of the chair, the embroidery catching the last of the firelight in a brief flash of silver. He feels a sense of lightness as he sheds the symbols of his office and prepares for sleep. He climbs into the bed, the linen sheets, feeling cool and crisp against his skin as he settles into the pillows. The down is soft and supportive, cradling his head and neck in a gentle embrace. He pulls the green velvet coverlet up to his chin, feeling the immediate warmth of the blankets. The room is turning to a deep, restful indigo as the fire continues to fade into the night. He closes his eyes and listens to the cadence of the tower, the soft humming of the stone and the wind. It is a melody of protection and peace, a song that has been sung for 1,000 years in this place. He lets the music wash over him, clearing away the last of his thoughts and leaving only the silence. The atmosphere is thick with the magic of the mountain, a protective veil that keeps the world at bay. He feels himself drifting toward the edge of sleep, his breathing slowing to a steady, rhythmic pace. The world outside is a distant memory, a place of light and noise that has no power over him tonight. He is safe in his sanctuary, surrounded by the things he loves and the magic he has mastered. The soft orange glow of the dying fire paints long, flickering shapes across the ceiling as he closes his eyes to listen to the mountain's slow granite heartbeat. The granite heartbeat of the peak pulses through the soles of his feet even as he lies in the quiet of his chamber. It is a slow, grounding vibration that speaks of deep roots and enduring stone. He shifts beneath the covers, feeling the gentle weight of the woven wool against his legs. The room is now a study in violet and charcoal, as the last of the embers surrender their warmth. Beyond the window, the mountain range extends like a sleeping dragon, its jagged spine dusted with silver moonlight. The peaks are silent, guardians of the valley, standing watch over the slumbering hamlets and the winding paths. He imagines the snow falling softly on the high passes, a quiet blanket that muffles the stride of any night traveler. There is a profound stillness in the height, a clarity that only the thin air can provide. His mind wanders to the great libraries situated deep within the mountain's core, where the smell of vellum and cedar remains constant. Thousands of scrolls rest upon their shelves, containing the wisdom of a dozen forgotten eras. He can almost hear the dry rustle of the parchment as the mountain breezes find their way through the vents. It is a comforting library of history, a repository of every spell and every story ever told. He recalls the way the mage light reflects off the crystal clusters embedded in the corridor walls. These stones hum with a low sapphire energy, lighting the way for those who seek knowledge in the dimness. They do not flicker like candles, but glow with a steady, unwavering light that feels like a physical touch. The halls are wide and cool, carved with patterns of flowing water and rising smoke. In the corner of his room, a tall wooden staff leans against the stone, its surface polished by decades of use. The grain of the wood is intricate, a map of the tree's life before it became a vessel for his power. It stands silent now, its purpose fulfilled for the day, resting as its master rests. The crystal atop it has dimmed to a faint milky white, mirroring the peace of the hour. He thinks of the garden terraces that cling to the cliffs outside, where hardy flowers bloom in the pale starlight. Their petals are closed tight against the chill, holding their sweet fragrance until the sun returns to the eastern horizon. The soil there is rich and dark, fed by the mountain springs that trickle down from the summit. He can hear the distant trickle of water, a liquid melody that never ceases. This water flows through the entire tower in narrow channels carved into the very masonry. It brings the mountain's vitality into every room, a constant, refreshing presence that purifies the atmosphere. He listens to the soft gurgle as it passes through the wall near his headboard, a natural lullaby. It is the blood of the peak, moving in a tireless cycle of renewal and grace. He feels his limbs growing more weighted as the magic of the stone anchors him to the present. The worries of the kingdom are like autumn leaves, caught in a slow-moving stream, drifting further and further away. They have no place in this sacred hour of recovery and internal quiet. He is not a king tonight, but a part of the mountain itself. His breathing has become a slow measure of the passing minutes, each exhale releasing a little more tension. The air in the room is crisp, carrying the faint scent of pine needles and cold stone. It is a clean, invigorating scent that clears the senses and prepares the soul for the dream realm. He welcomes the cool draught against his cheek, a gentle reminder of the world's vastness. In the village far below, the tavern hearths have likely turned to ash, and the streets are empty. The villagers sleep in their timber-framed houses, tucked under thick quilts, safe in the shadow of his protection. Their dreams are simple and sweet, filled with the harvest and the hearth, free from the weight of sorcery. He takes a quiet pride in their peace, a silent vow, renewed in the late hour. He remembers a small bridge made of white marble that crosses the stream in the valley floor. It is weathered by centuries of rain and sun, its edges softened by the passage of many feet. In the moonlight it shines like a fallen crescent, a path between the wild woods and the tilled fields. It is a place of meeting and parting, now silent under the watchful stars. Above the bridge, the willow trees dip their long trailing branches into the cold water. They sway in the evening breeze like dancers in a slow, elegant ballroom, their leaves whispering secrets to the current. The fish below move in shadows, silver flashes in the dark pools of the riverbed. Everything is in its proper place, moving according to an age-old design. He turns his head slightly on the pillow, finding a fresh, cool spot for his temple. The fabric is smooth and inviting, a luxury earned through years of tireless labor and study. He appreciates the simple texture of the linen, a tactile comfort that grounds him in his body. The world of spirit and spell is vast, but the world of the senses is where he finds rest. Shadows dance across the far wall, cast by the dying glow of a single enchanted candle on the mantel. It burns without smoke or heat, a steady flame that will last until the dawn breaks the horizon. It is a beacon of sorts, a tiny star captured in wax to keep the murk at bay. Its light is honey gold, casting a soft radiance over the carved wood of the ceiling. He traces the patterns in the woodwork with his eyes, following the intertwined vines and mythical beasts. They were carved by master craftsmen who poured their devotion into every stroke of the chisel. The wood is dark oak, seasoned by time and the ambient magic of the tower. It feels alive in its own quiet way, a witness to the history of his line. He feels the onset of a pleasant lethargy, a softening of the edges of his consciousness. The mountain seems to pull him deeper into its embrace, offering the safety of its granite bones. He is a guest in this high place, a temporary tenant of the timeless stone. The thought is humbling and strangely comforting as he drifts toward the void of sleep. There is a finality to the day, a closing of the book that brings a sense of completion. He has done what he could, and the rest is left to the morning and the light. The night is a time for letting go, for surrendering the will to the natural flow of existence. He yields to the current of his own exhaustion. His eyes remain closed now, the darkness behind, his lids a peaceful velvet curtain. He can still feel the presence of the tower around him, a solid, unmoving shell against the elements. It is a fortress of the mind as much as a fortress of stone built to withstand the tides of change. He is the center of this stillness, the quiet heart of the storm. As the last flicker of the candle dies, he is left in the perfect dimness of the high peak. The silence is absolute, save for the distant rhythmic pulse of the mountain itself. It is a song of the earth, a deep, resonant hum that vibrates in his very marrow. He is ready to cross the threshold into the dreaming world. He lets out one last, long breath, a sigh of total release as his mind finally begins to quiet its busy thoughts. The transition is seamless, a gentle downward slide into the soft embrace of the night. He is no longer a king or a sorcerer, but a soul at rest in the heart of the world. The mountain watches over him as he enters the gateway of the dreaming halls. The moonlight spills across the polished obsidian floor like a river of liquid silver flowing toward the dais. It catches the sharp edges of the stone, creating a shimmering path that leads the eye toward the empty throne. The hall is a cavern of quietude, where even the smallest breath seems to linger in the vaulted heights. Above, the arches are lost in a deep violet shadow where the stone ribs meet like the fingers of a giant. There is a peace here that exists only in the deepest hours after the sun has vanished. The tapestries hanging along the western wall sway in a phantom draught, their woven figures moving with a slow and ghostly grace. These are the stories of a time-worn era, depicting the first kings and the binding of the great drakes. The threads of gold and crimson have faded to a soft amber and rose in the dimness of the evening. Each stitch represents a moment of a forgotten life, a quiet testament to the endurance of memory. The fabric feels thick and cool, holding the scent of cedar and dried lavender. In the center of the room, a large bronze censer rests on a tripod of wrought iron. The coals within have faded to a dull orange glow, releasing a thin ribbon of smoke that curls toward the ceiling. The scent is earthy and sweet, a blend of pine resin and crushed jasmine that fills the atmosphere with a calming haze. It is a fragrance that speaks of old rituals and the steady passage of the seasons. The smoke drifts through a beam of moonlight, turning into a shimmering ribbon of grey silk. High above the clerestory, windows reveal a glimpse of the celestial sea, where the stars are scattered like diamond dust across the blackness. There is no wind to stir the flags that hang from the rafters, and they drape like sleeping wings in the still atmosphere. The silence is not empty, but full of the subtle murmurs of the castle itself. The stone breathes with the cooling of the earth, a slow and measured expansion that only the most attentive soul can perceive. It is the heartbeat of the mountain, softened by leagues of granite. The throne itself is a masterpiece of white ash and star metal, its back rising like the crest of a breaking wave. It does not shine, but glows with an inner light, a remnant of the enchantments woven into its very grain. The wood is smooth to the touch, polished by the hands of a dozen generations who sought wisdom in its embrace. On the armrests, tiny runes are carved, their grooves filled with a pale blue essence that pulses with a slow tempo. This is the seat of power, but also the seat of rest. A single silver chalice sits on a low table of dark mahogany near the foot of the dais. A few drops of deep red wine remain at the bottom, reflecting the stars in a tiny crimson pool. The metal is cool and damp with the moisture of the late hour, and it catches the flicker of a distant magelight orb. That orb drifts slowly through the corridor outside, a wandering star that keeps watch over the sleeping halls. Its light is soft and blue, casting long, elegant shadows that dance across the doorway. Far below, the city is a carpet of dying embers as the hearth fires are banked for the long sleep. The streets are empty, save for the occasional watchman whose lantern is a lonely spark in the vast landscape. The king can sense their dreams rising like a warm mist from the valley, a collective sigh of relief that the day is done. He is the guardian of their peace, the silent sentinel who remains awake so they may rest without fear. The weight of the crown is absent now, replaced by the lightness of the quiet hours. An hourglass on a nearby plinth marks the flow of time with a steady and silent fall of sand. Each grain is a second lost to the past, a tiny fragment of the universe finding its place at the bottom of the glass. The sand is a pale gold, shimmering as it passes through the narrow neck of the vessel. It is a reminder that even the longest rain is but a moment in the eyes of the mountain. The sight is hypnotic, a visual lullaby that draws the mind toward a state of total stillness. In the shadow of a great pillar, a large grey hound is curled in sleep, its paws twitching as it chases phantom stags in the dreaming woods. Its breath is a soft and regular hiss, a comforting noise that grounds the room in the reality of the living. The animal knows nothing of spells or borders, only the warmth of the stone and the presence of its master. It is a simple existence, one that the king envies in the quiet moments of his solitude. The hound's fur is thick and coarse, smelling of rain and old wool. Beyond the grand doors, the library annex holds the collective wisdom of the realm, bound in leather and vellum. The books rest on their shelves, like sleeping birds, their pages filled with the secrets of the stars and the earth. A faint scent of old parchment and ink drifts into the throne room, a scholarly perfume that calms the restless mind. The king has spent many a year in those halls, searching for the keys to the mysteries of his craft. Now the books are silent, their voices waiting for the return of the morning light. Dust motes dance in a shaft of moonlight, their movements chaotic yet strangely graceful, like a microscopic ballet. They rise and fall on the invisible currents of the atmosphere, oblivious to the grandeur of the setting. Each speck is a tiny world catching the silver light for a fleeting second before vanishing back into the murk. The king watches them, his eyes tracking their slow descent toward the obsidian floor. It is a lesson in the beauty of the small and the seemingly insignificant. The stone walls are adorned with carved reliefs showing the flora and fauna of the high mountain passes. There are delicate ferns and sturdy pines and the noble eagles that nest in the highest crags. The detail is so fine that one can almost feel the texture of the needles and the softness of the feathers. These carvings were made by the hands of the first mountain folk who found sanctuary in these peaks. They are a part of the building as much as the granite and the mortar. As the moon climbs higher, the shadows in the throne room begin to shift and change their shape. The pillars grow longer, and the corners of the room seem to recede into an infinite distance. The hall feels like it is expanding, becoming a cathedral of the mind, where the only limit is the imagination. The king closes his eyes for a moment, and he can see the entire kingdom spread out beneath him in a map of light and shadow. Every river is a vein of silver, and every forest a patch of velvet green. He feels the pulse of the land, a deep and resonant hum that vibrates through the soles of his feet. It is the song of the earth, a melody that has been playing since the first dawn. The music is slow and majestic, a series of low notes that resonate in the very marrow of his bones. It is a grounding force, a reminder that he is connected to everything, from the highest peak to the deepest root. The tension in his shoulders finally begins to melt away. His hands rest on the cool stone of the armrests, his fingers tracing the familiar patterns of the runes. They are warm now, holding the heat of the day and the energy of the spells he has cast. The magic is a part of him, a second skin that protects and sustains him in his long watch. It is a quiet power, one that does not need to be shouted, to be felt. In the stillness, it is as natural as the breath in his lungs. There is a sense of completion in the air, as if the day has finally reached its natural end. The tasks are finished, the decrees are signed, and the worries of the state have been set aside. The night is a sanctuary, a place where the king can simply be a man without the burden of the crown. He breathes in the cool atmosphere and lets out a long and weary sigh. The sound is lost in the vastness of the hall, a tiny ripple in a sea of silence. He thinks of the morning and the light that will eventually break over the horizon, bringing with it new challenges and new joys. But for now, the darkness is his friend, a soft and protective blanket that hides the world from his sight. He is content to remain in this half-light, where the boundaries between the real and the imagined are thin and porous. The throne room is a bridge between the two, a place of transition and peace. The mage-light orb outside the door flickers and then dims its energy spent for the evening. The hall is plunged into a deeper shade of violet, illuminated only by the dying coals and the distant stars. The silence deepens, becoming a thick and comforting presence that wraps around him like a cloak of shadows. He is ready to let go of the last threads of consciousness and drift into the dreaming world. The mountain holds him in its granite lap. He imagines the kingdom as a sleeping child tucked into the folds of the hills and the valleys. The rivers are its breath, and the forests are its hair, and the mountains are its bones. It is a beautiful and fragile thing, and he is honored to be its keeper. The thought brings a smile to his lips, a rare and private moment of pure satisfaction. He is at home in the heart of the world, and all is well. The final grain of sand falls through the neck of the hourglass, and the glass is empty once more. The time for waking has passed, and the time for dreaming has truly begun. He yields to the gentle pull of the void, a soft and welcoming embrace that promises rest and renewal. The throne room fades from his senses, replaced by the vast and shimmering landscapes of the mind. He moves forward into the quiet halls of the inner sanctum. Beyond the high arched doorway of the throne room lies a corridor of polished jet, where the light of the moon falls in long silver rectangles across the floor. Each step taken is a muffled beat, absorbed by the plush velvet runners that line the path toward the private chambers. Here, the scale of the palace shifts, becoming more intimate, more attuned to the needs of a single soul. The scent of sandalwood and old parchment drifts through the passage, a familiar greeting that speaks of solitude and study. In this secluded wing, the walls are not of bare granite, but are covered in shelves of cedar, holding thousands of leather-bound volumes. The spines are embossed with gold leaf, reflecting the faint blue luminescence of the floating witchlights that hover near the ceiling. There is a specific stillness here, a quality of hush that only exists where knowledge is kept and where the frantic pace of the court cannot reach. It is a place where time seems to slow, stretching out like a sleepy creature in a patch of sun. The private study is a sanctuary of wood and ink, where the aroma of aged paper mingles with the faint, sweet scent of dried jasmine. A single tall candle stands upon the desk of dark mahogany, its flame burning steady and true in the absence of any draught. The light it casts is warm and golden, creating a small circle of clarity in the surrounding dimness. Every object here has a place, and every place has a story, told in the language of dust and quietude. Upon a stand of wrought brass, a crystal globe of the heavens rotates with a slow and silent grace. It depicts the constellations of this realm, each star a tiny point of light etched into the glass with masterly precision. As it turns, the stars seem to twinkle, catching the glow of the candle and scattering it across the room. It is a reminder of the infinite, a map of the great beyond that watches over the sleeping land. At the far end of the room, a shimmering indigo veil of energy hangs across a secondary doorway, pulsing with a faint and rhythmic light. This is a ward of protection, a gentle barrier that ensures nothing from the outside can disturb the king in his moments of reflection. The magic is subtle, a humming vibration that can be felt in the marrow of the bones more than it can be heard by the ears. It is a comforting presence, a shield against the noise of the external realm. He moves toward the balcony where the glass doors stand open to the evening, allowing a cool breeze to wander through the study. Outside, the landscape is a sea of mist, with the peaks of the mountains rising like islands from a white and silent ocean. The valley below is hidden, tucked away beneath a blanket of fog that glows softly under the light of the stars. It is a view of peace, a vista of a land at rest, far removed from the struggles of the day. The stone of the balcony railing is weathered, its surface etched with the history of many generations in the form of intricate carvings and sigils. Moss grows in the deeper grooves, a soft and green velvet that feels damp to the touch, holding the moisture of the clouds. These patterns tell the tales of forgotten heroes and storied kings, their deeds preserved in the very bones of the palace. To touch them is to connect with the past, to feel the weight of time held in a single moment. In a corner of the balcony, a silver basin sits upon a tripod of iron, filled with water that is as still as a mirror. The surface reflects the brightest star in the sky, a single point of brilliant white, suspended in the center of the dark pool. This is a vessel for scrying, a tool for seeing what is hidden, but tonight it remains a simple reflection of the heavens. The water is cold, a refreshing contrast to the warmth of the inner study, and it smells of rain and mountain heights. Returning to the warmth of the interior, he finds a small wooden table where a ceramic cup of herbal tea awaits his arrival. Steam rises from the liquid in lazy white spirals, carrying the fragrance of honey, lavender, and dried meadowsweet. The cup is rough-hewn, a piece of simple craft that feels solid and grounding in his hands. Each sip is a slow and deliberate act, a way to taste the essence of the earth and to quiet the remaining echoes of the day. A chair of soft drake hide stands by a small fireplace, its high back and deep seat promising a comfort that is rare in the life of a ruler. The leather is supple, worn to a gentle sheen by years of use, and it molds itself to his form as he eases into its embrace. A small fire burns in the hearth, not for heat, but for the companionship of its flickering light and the low, companionable crackle of the wood. It is a hearth for the spirit, a source of light in the late hour. On the wall opposite the chair, a large tapestry depicts the creation of the sun and the moon, woven with threads of gold, silver, and deep violet. The figures are stylized and elegant, their movements captured in a frozen dance of celestial harmony. The fabric is thick and weighted, muffling any noise that might dare to enter from the corridors beyond. It is a masterpiece of the weaver's art, a window into the myths that define the culture of this place. A clock of brass and glass sits upon a side table, its gears turning with a muted metallic note that marks the passing of the minutes. The pendulum swings with a measured beat, a steady pulse that anchors the room in the present. It does not rush, nor does it lag, but moves with the inevitable certainty of the stars. The sound is a lullaby of mechanics, a soothing reminder that the universe is in its proper order. The shadows on the vaulted ceiling dance in response to the shifting flames of the hearth, creating shapes that shift and change with every moment. They are like ghosts of thoughts moving through the mind before they are finally released into the silence. The stone of the ceiling is dark and strong, a protective canopy that has stood for 500 years. It has seen many kings, and it will see many more, a silent witness to the passage of an age. Along one shelf, a collection of glass vials is arranged in a neat row, each one filled with a liquid that glows with its own unique light. Some are amber like honey, others are green like the forest in spring, and one is a deep royal violet that seems to pulse with a hidden life. These are elixirs of peace and clarity, crafted by the court alchemists to aid the king in his meditations. They are beautiful to behold, a rainbow of magic captured in crystal. A window seat, covered in plush cushions of dark blue silk, offers a place to sit and watch the stars without the chill of the breeze. From here the constellations seem close enough to touch, their light filtered through the thick leaded glass of the window. It is a quiet corner for dreaming, a place where the boundaries between the self and the cosmos begin to blur. The silk is cool against the skin, a luxury that speaks of the wealth of the kingdom and the peace of the night. An ornate rug covers the center of the floor, its patterns showing a map of the heavens as they were 1,000 years ago. The colors are faded but still rich, with deep crimsons and midnight blues interlaced with threads of shimmering silver. To walk upon it is to walk among the stars, a symbolic journey through the history of the skies. The wool is thick and soft, silencing the footfall and adding a layer of warmth to the stone floor. In the corner of the study, a small fountain carved from a single block of white marble trickles water over smooth river stones. The murmur of the water is a constant, gentle backdrop to the silence, a liquid melody that washes away the stresses of the mind. The stones are of different colors: quartz, jasper, and obsidian, each one polished to a high shine by the constant flow. It is a piece of the wild brought indoors, a reminder of the living heart of the mountain. On a pedestal near the window, an open music box reveals its inner workings, a complex arrangement of tiny silver gears and pins. It is silent now, but the potential for music remains, a promise of beauty that does not need to be realized to be felt. The lid is inlaid with mother of pearl, showing a scene of a dragon sleeping beneath a willow tree. It is a delicate and precious thing, a gift from a distant land that speaks of friendship and peace. His hand rests upon a cushion of purple velvet, the fabric catching the golden light of the candle and the silver light of the moon. The texture is rich and complex, a landscape of tiny fibers that respond to the lightest touch. It is a moment of pure sensory focus, a way to bring the attention back to the present and to the simple reality of being. The kingly rings on his fingers are weighted and cold, but they are also a part of him, symbols of a duty that he carries with grace. The study is a world within a world, a place of perfect balance and profound stillness, where the Sorcerer King can finally find his rest. The light of the candle flickers once, twice, and then goes out, leaving the room in the soft blue embrace of the moonlight. The fire in the hearth has turned to glowing coals, a warm and pulsing heart in the center of the dimness. The path leads deeper still, toward the very core of the mountain's memory. The descent is measured, each step taken with a deliberate slowness that echoes through the arched corridor. Here the temperature drops, replaced by a refreshing chill that smells of deep quartz and hidden springs. The walls are not of masonry, but are carved directly from the living bedrock, polished until they gleam like dark glass. Luminous moss clings to the crevices, casting a soft emerald radiance that guides the way without the need for torches. It is a living light, pulsing with the slow breath of the earth itself, a gentle green glow that softens the sharp edges of the stone. This is the path to the Hall of Lineage, where the kings of old stand in silent vigil. The chamber opens wide, a sprawling space where the ceiling is lost to the upper shadows. Great pillars of basalt rise like the trunks of stone trees, their bases entwined with silver veins of raw ore. Between these pillars, statues of immense proportions stand, carved with such detail that their robes seem to flutter in a phantom breeze. Each figure is a testament to a different age, their faces set in expressions of eternal contemplation. Some hold staves of petrified wood, while others rest their hands upon hilts of swords that have not seen battle in 5 centuries. The atmosphere here is thick with the weight of time, a quiet density that feels like a physical embrace. The floor is a mosaic of obsidian and moonstone, depicting the great cycle of the seasons as seen from the mountain peak. Beneath the soles of his boots, the stones feel smooth and perfectly joined, a testament to the master masons of a forgotten era. There is no dust here, only the pristine clarity of a place kept sacred by the mountain's own grace. A low hum vibrates through the soles of his feet, a deep and resonant frequency, that is, the heartbeat of the realm. It is a comforting note, a foundation of reality that has remained unchanged since the first stones were laid. To listen to it is to understand the endurance of the earth and the fleeting nature of all things that dwell upon it. In the center of the hall, a pool of liquid silver reflects the vaulted ceiling, its surface undisturbed by even the slightest ripple. This is the mirror of memory, a pool fed by the tears of the mountain, cold and pure. To look into its depths is to see the stars reflected from a hole high above, a single needle of light piercing the gloom. The Sorcerer King pauses by the water, his reflection a pale shadow against the shimmering silver. He does not seek visions tonight, only the stillness that the water provides, a mirror for his own internal quietude. The silence of the hall is not empty, but filled with the presence of those who came before, a collective sigh of 1,000 years. He reaches out a hand, his fingers hovering just above the liquid surface, feeling the intense cold that radiates from it. The metal of his rings seems to hum in sympathy with the water, a subtle vibration that travels up his arm and into his chest. It is a connection of iron and spirit, a reminder of his bond to the very marrow of this land. To the left, an altar of translucent jade glows with an inner fire, holding a single unlit candle of beeswax and sage. It is a simple offering, a point of focus in the sprawling hall that draws the eye with its humble beauty. The scent of the wax is faint, a sweetness that cuts through the mineral tang of the cavern. He moves past the altar, his cloak trailing behind him like a wake in a still pond, the fabric whispering against the stone. The corridor beyond is narrower, lined with alcoves that house the chronicles of the Mountain Kings, written on plates of hammered gold. These are the stories of peace and prosperity, of long summers and winters spent by the hearth. The script upon the plates is elegant and flowing, a language of curves and dots that seems to dance in the emerald magelight. Each plate is a leaf in a book of metal, a permanent record of a people who valued wisdom over conquest. He brushes his thumb over a line of text, feeling the raised letters like braille, a tactile link to the thoughts of his ancestors. The path begins to slope upward once more, leading toward a balcony that overlooks the great forge, now silent and cool. The forge is a hollowed-out cathedral of iron and soot, where the fires are banked for the season of rest. Even in its dormancy, the space feels powerful, a womb of creation where the tools of the kingdom were once shaped. Large chains of black iron hang from the ceiling, their links as thick as a man's torso, disappearing into the heights. They are motionless now, iron vines in a garden of industry, waiting for the return of the sun to stir them into motion. The smell of cold ash and old iron persists, a nostalgic perfume that speaks of hard work and honest craft. He leans against the railing, the metal cool against his palms, and looks down into the pit of the forge. Below, the anvils sit like square islands in a sea of shadow, their faces scarred by 1,000,000 strikes of the hammer. Each mark is a story, a moment of effort that contributed to the strength of the walls and the safety of the folk. A small bird, a cave swift with feathers of iridescent blue, flits through the rafters, its wings making a soft, dry noise. It is a solitary inhabitant of the heights, a tiny spark of life in the cathedral of stone. Its song is a series of clear, liquid whistles that echo through the forge, a lonely and beautiful melody. The king watches the bird until it vanishes into a crevice, a brief intersection of lives in the quiet hours of the evening. He feels a sense of kinship with the creature, both of them finding peace in the hidden places of this region. The mountain provides for all, from the smallest bird to the highest sovereign, a mother of stone and shadow. He turns away from the forge, his footsteps leading him toward a small chamber tucked behind a curtain of falling water. The water is a thin veil, a shimmering screen that filters the light into 1,000 dancing diamonds. To pass through it is to enter a sanctuary of moisture and music, a hidden room where the atmosphere is always sweet. Inside, the walls are covered in soft ferns that thrive in the constant mist. Their fronds are vibrant, healthy green. A stone bench padded with cushions of woven moss invites him to sit and listen to the pulse of the water. This is the heart room, a place of meditation where the king comes to shed the last of his royal burdens. The dripping water creates a complex pattern of notes, a natural symphony that requires no conductor. Each drop is a percussion, a tiny impact that resonates through the small space, with a clarity that is startling. He closes his eyes, letting the murmur wash over him, a baptism of pure, cold water that cleanses the mind. The moss beneath him is springy and damp, a living upholstery that conforms to his shape with a gentle pressure. It smells of the forest floor after a spring rain, a scent that brings memories of green valleys and sun-drenched meadows. Here the weight of the crown is forgotten, replaced by the simple sensation of being alive and at peace. The dimness of the heart room is absolute, save for the faint glimmer of the water veil, a shimmering doorway to the rest of the realm. He feels himself drifting, his thoughts becoming as fluid and formless as the mist that surrounds him. It is a state of grace, a moment of perfect equilibrium where the self dissolves into the surroundings. The measure of the mountain is slower here, a deep, thrumming bass that seems to vibrate within his very bones. It is the murmur of the world's endurance, a promise that the earth will remain long after the kings have passed into legend. This realization is not a sorrow, but a comfort, a reminder of his place in the grand, unfolding story of the realm. The evening continues its slow march toward the dawn, but here, in the heart of the stone, time has little meaning. There is only the drip of water, the scent of moss, and the profound stillness of a king at rest. The passage through the mountain's memory is nearly complete, with the final threshold of the night drawing near. The king rises from the moss-covered bench, his movements slow and deliberate, as he prepares to leave the sanctuary of the heart room. Behind him, the veil of water continues its tireless descent, a shimmering curtain that hums with the energy of the mountain. He steps through the cooling mist, feeling the fine spray upon his skin, a final benediction from the stone. The transition is seamless, moving from the humid embrace of the cavern into the dry, crisp atmosphere of the inner gallery. This long corridor is lined with the tall effigies of those who came before, stone sentinels carved from the very bones of the peak. Their faces are smoothed by the passage of centuries, yet their eyes seem to follow him with a quiet, knowing grace. He walks past them, his boots making no noise upon the polished obsidian floor, which reflects the pale magelight like a frozen lake. Each statue represents a story, a reign, and a legacy that now rests upon his shoulders. He stops before the likeness of the first queen, a woman whose hands are forever clasped over a heart of sapphire. The gemstone pulses with a faint internal radiance, casting a blue hue over the surrounding masonry. It is said that her spirit remains within the walls, guarding the secrets of the lineage against the fading light. The king touches the cold stone of her sleeve, feeling a connection that transcends the boundaries of time and mortality. Further down the hall, the amber glow of floating lanterns illuminates the path, their flames dancing in a draught that only he can feel. These lights are fueled by the memory of sunlight captured in glass spheres by the court alchemists during the height of summer. They provide a warmth that is more than physical, a reminder of the sun's promise even in the deepest hours of the evening. The shadows they cast are long and elegant, stretching across the floor like the fingers of a giant. He reaches a set of double doors, crafted from the wood of a tree that grew before the first mountain was named. The grain is intricate, forming patterns that resemble the flow of a river or the swirling of a galaxy. As he pushes them open, the hinges breathe a low, melodic sigh, welcoming him into his private scriptorium. This is a room of paper and ink, where the history of the realm is recorded by pens that move of their own volition. In the center of the chamber stands a desk of white marble, its plane covered in scrolls that have been cured in dragon smoke. The scent is unmistakable, a mixture of sulfur, old leather, and the sharp tang of ozone. He approaches the desk, his hand hovering over a map of the stars that has been etched into a sheet of silver. The constellations glow with a soft white light, shifting slightly to match the current position of the heavens above. He takes his seat in a high-backed chair, the velvet upholstery a deep royal purple that seems to swallow the dimness. The chair is wide and supportive, designed for long hours of contemplation and the study of the arcane. From this vantage point, he can see the entire room, a landscape of shelves that reach toward the vaulted ceiling. Thousands of volumes are housed here, their spines gilded with gold and silver, containing the wisdom of 1,000 lifetimes. Outside the tall, arched windows, the evening has turned a deep shade of indigo, the sky peppered with 1,000,000 distant suns. The capital city lies far below, a cluster of flickering lights that look like fallen stars nestled in the valley. He watches the way the mist rolls over the lower battlements, a silent tide that obscures the world of men. Up here, in the high reaches of the palace, the concerns of the day feel small and inconsequential. A small hearth in the corner of the scriptorium crackles softly, the wood of the iron oak burning with a steady blue flame. It produces very little smoke, instead filling the chamber with a fragrance of dried lavender and pine resin. The heat is a gentle pressure against his face, a comfort that allows his mind to drift away from the burdens of statecraft. He watches a single spark rise into the chimney, a brief golden life that vanishes into the blackness. On the corner of his desk, an hourglass filled with silver sand marks the passage of the late hours. The grains fall with a tiny crystalline noise, a measure of time that is both precise and beautiful. He finds himself mesmerized by the flow, the way the top globe empties as the bottom one fills, a cycle of ending and beginning. It is a reminder that even the longest reign is but a moment in the grand span of the cosmos. He reaches for a quill made from the feather of a phoenix, its barbs shimmering with an iridescent sheen. The inkwell is a hollowed-out emerald, filled with a liquid that flows like midnight and smells of the sea. He does not write, not yet, but simply holds the pen, feeling the latent power that resides within the tool. It is a weight he is accustomed to, the power to change the landscape with a single well-placed word. His gaze drifts to a portrait hanging on the far wall, a painting of a garden that exists only in his memories. The colors are vibrant and lush, a stark contrast to the cool tones of the stone and magic that surround him. He can almost smell the jasmine and the damp earth, can almost feel the warmth of a hand that is no longer there. The memory remains, a persistent ghost that brings a bittersweet smile to his tired face. Through the window, a lone owl glides past, its white wings catching the moonlight as it hunts in the silent woods below. It is a ghost of the forest, a creature of the half-light that moves with a grace he can only envy. He follows its flight until it is lost in the shadows of the pines, a small part of the natural order continuing its work. The mountain is alive, even when it seems most still, a hive of quiet activity beneath the surface of the evening. He turns back to the silver map, tracing the line of a comet that is prophesied to return in another 70 years. He will not be here to see it, but his successors will, and he must ensure they are prepared for its arrival. The stewardship of a kingdom is a task that extends far beyond the limits of a single life. It is a tapestry that is woven by many hands, each thread contributing to the strength of the whole. The mage light in the lanterns begins to dim, responding to his own desire for rest and the deepening of the night. The shadows grow longer, creeping across the room to reclaim the corners and the hidden niches of the library. He does not fear the dimness, for it is a familiar companion, a space where his thoughts can expand without distraction. In the quiet, he is not just a king, but a scholar of the infinite, a seeker of the truth behind the stars. He stands once more, his joints offering a faint, sympathetic protest to the movement, and walks toward the window. He leans his forehead against the cool glass, looking out at the expanse of his domain, from the jagged peaks to the rolling plains. It is a beautiful, fragile place, held together by the strength of his will and the endurance of his people. He feels a profound sense of gratitude for the opportunity to serve, even in the lonely hours of the night. He moves toward the door that leads to his bedchamber, his hand lingering on the handle of the scriptorium's exit. The room behind him is a museum of his life's work, a testament to the knowledge he has gathered and the peace he has maintained. It will be here tomorrow, waiting for him to return and continue the endless task of ruling. For now the call of sleep is stronger than the lure of the library, a tide that cannot be turned. As he enters his sleeping quarters, the atmosphere changes again, becoming softer and more intimate. The walls are draped in thick tapestries that depict the myths of the world's creation, the colors muted by the moonlight. The bed is a wide expanse of silk and down, a sanctuary of comfort that promises a dreamless, restorative rest. He sheds the last of his royal robes, the weighted fabric falling to the floor with a soft, muffled sound. He lies down, the mattress conforming to his shape, the pillows cradling his head with a gentle, airy pressure. The silence of the mountain is absolute here, a profound stillness that allows the mind to finally let go of its anchors. He closes his eyes, the image of the silver stars still burned into his retinas, a map for his journey into the land of dreams. The evening has reached its peak, and the transition into the final watch is nearly at hand. His breathing slows, matching the steady, deep pulse of the stone beneath him, a cadence of peace that has no end. The king is at rest, and the kingdom sleeps with him, protected by the walls of the mountain and the legacy of the throne. The journey through the memories of the night is coming to a close, leading toward the final threshold where even the stars find their rest. The transition into the final watch is a subtle shift, a softening of the edges of the room. The cold stone of the mountain, so prominent in the lower halls, is here masked by the warmth of woven wool and the scent of dried jasmine. Every breath is a slow, deliberate movement, a quiet communion with the stillness of the peak. The Sorcerer King feels the weighted history of his lines slipping away, leaving only the man beneath the title. The moonlight, a pale and steady companion, traces the patterns of the floor tiles with silver ink. Each geometric shape tells a story of the stars, a map of the heavens laid out for those who know how to read the light. There is no urgency in this hour, no demands from the council or the common folk. The kingdom is a sleeping giant, breathing in unison with its protector, held in the cradle of the valley. A single ember in the hearth pops, a tiny, sharp note in the symphony of silence. It is the only movement in the room, a brief spark that fades into the grey ash. The warmth of the fire remains, a gentle glow that keeps the chill of the high altitude at bay. He closes his eyes, and the imagery of the day turns into a kaleidoscope of soft colors and drifting shapes. The ley lines, those invisible rivers of power that flow through the earth, are calm tonight. He can feel them beneath his bed, a low, steady thrum that vibrates through the very foundations of the castle. It is a grounding force, a reminder that he is part of a larger, storied system. The magic does not need to be shaped or commanded now. It simply exists, a natural part of the landscape. In the village below, the lanterns have all been extinguished, and the streets are paved with shadows. The river that winds through the town is a ribbon of mercury, reflecting the brilliance of the celestial bodies above. The fish in the deep pools are still, and the birds in the eaves have tucked their heads beneath their wings. All is as it should be, a moment of absolute equilibrium in a moving universe. He thinks of the great library, where the scrolls are resting on their cedar shelves. The knowledge contained within them is safe, guarded by the silence and the wards he placed centuries ago. There is a comfort in knowing that the past is preserved, a foundation for the future that will wake with the sun. But for now, the future is a distant shore, and he is content to drift on the current of the present. The tapestries on the walls seem to breathe, the threads of silver and gold shimmering in the dimness. They tell of the first kings who climbed these peaks, and the dragons who once shared the sky with them. Those eras are gone, but their echoes persist in the architecture and the songs of the people. He is the latest link in a chain that stretches back to the dawn of the realm, a steward of a legacy that transcends time. His hands, once busy with the signing of decrees and the weaving of spells, are now loose and still. The tension that often resides in the shoulders has dissolved, replaced by a sense of buoyancy. It is as if the mountain has taken his weight upon itself, allowing him to float in the sea of his own consciousness. The boundaries between the self and the surroundings are thinning, a beautiful dissolution of the ego. Beyond the balcony, the wind whispers through the jagged crags, a song without words. It carries the scent of the high snows and the sharp clarity of the upper atmosphere. It is a clean, bracing perfume that clears the mind of any lingering clutter. The Sorcerer King inhales deeply, filling his lungs with the essence of the peaks, and exhales the last of his worries. The stars are his guides now, their distant fire providing a beacon for his internal journey. He knows each one by name, from the bright eye of the North Star to the flickering cluster of the Seven Sisters. They are constant, unchanging, a reminder of the immensity that lies beyond the reach of any crown. In their light, the troubles of a single life seem small and manageable. The bed is a fortress of comfort, the silk sheets cool against his skin. He can feel the texture of the embroidery, a fine, intricate pattern that was crafted by the master weavers of the southern coast. It took 3 years to complete this set, a labor of love and skill that is now a part of his nightly ritual. The craftsmanship is a testament to the talent of his subjects, a beauty that he cherishes. A soft blue glow emanates from the crystal on his bedside table, a fragment of the heartstone. It pulses with a slow, steady light, a heartbeat of the earth that mirrors his own. This stone was a gift from the deep dwellers, a token of the alliance that has kept the peace for generations. It is a symbol of the interconnectedness of all things, from the highest peak to the deepest cavern. The shadows in the corners of the room are long and soft, like the fur of a great cat. They do not hold any secrets or fears, only the promise of rest and the privacy of the soul. He welcomes them, letting them wrap around him like a cloak. In this space, there is no need for sight, for the heart knows the way through the dimness. His mind wanders to the forest at the foot of the mountain, where the age-old oaks are standing guard. Their roots are deep, entwined with the stone, drinking from the hidden springs that feed the land. They have seen empires rise and fall, and yet they remain, a steady presence in an ever-changing landscape. He feels a kinship with them, a shared responsibility to endure and protect. The silence of the chamber is profound, a depth of quiet that can only be found at the top of the world. It is not an empty silence, but one filled with the presence of the mountain and the history of the halls. It is a space where the soul can expand, reaching out to touch the edges of the infinite. He is no longer a king, but a part of the stillness itself. The pulse of the castle is a slow, rhythmic thrum that he feels in his very bones. It is the sound of the stone expanding and contracting, a living entity that has sheltered his family for ages. The walls are thick, built to withstand the fiercest storms and the longest winters. Within them he is safe, a seedling in the heart of a great tree. He imagines the dawn, still many hours away, when the first light will touch the highest spires. The gold leaf on the domes will catch the sun, turning the castle into a beacon of hope for the valley. But that is a different time, a different state of being, for now he is a creature of the evening, a passenger on the slow ship of the night. The movement into sleep is a gradual process, a slow receding of the tide. The thoughts that were once so sharp and defined are now blurred, like a painting left out in the rain. They merge and shift, forming new and strange patterns that have no basis in logic. He does not try to catch them, but lets them flow past, a river of images and sensations, leaving the physical world behind. The weight of the mountain is a comfort, a solid and unmoving foundation. It is the anchor that holds him in place while his mind wanders the star paths. He knows that when he wakes, the stone will still be there, and the kingdom will still be his to guide. But in this moment, the only duty he has is to find the center of his own peace. The final threshold is near, a soft and inviting doorway into the realm of dreams. He steps through it with a sense of wonder, embracing the quietude that only the deepest hours can provide. The Sorcerer King is at rest, and the silence of the peaks is absolute. The journey of the night has reached its end, and the peace of the mountain is his to keep until the sun returns to claim the sky. Thank you for resting here a while. Until next time on the Drowsy Dragon, sleep well.